This episode is presented by Visit Cedar City Bryan Head Tourism Bureau. Discover the art of adventure at Utah's gateway to the parks. Cedar City is within a few hours' drive from 6 different national parks and monuments, and only 30 minutes from fresh snow at Bryan Head Resort. Check out visitcedarcity.com to plan your next trip. This episode is sponsored by the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center. Dedicated to supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs, it provides resources and services aimed at fostering business creation, growth, and retention. The center features the Makerspace, where entrepreneurs and small businesses can have access to 3D printers, video production and photography equipment, t-shirt printing, and more. Whether you're starting a new venture or looking to expand an existing one, the Cedar City Business and Innovation Center offers the tools and guidance to help you succeed. To learn more and get involved, visit innovationcenter.cc. Hello and welcome to the Explore Local podcast presented by Visit Cedar City Bryan Head in partnership with Cedar City Iron County Economic Development. Produced by Dallas Smith Media, and I'm your host, David Johnson. All right, well, today we have Mindy Benson, who is the president of Southern Utah University. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to be with you today.
Yeah, great to have you. So, Mindy, why don't you just tell our audience, I know all the locals know all about Southern Utah University, and I think we'll get into things that people might not know, but who is Southern Utah University?
Southern Utah University is an incredible institution that was actually founded by our community 128 years ago. By farmers, ranchers, and miners who would never use this institution, but they knew that their children and grandchildren and future generations are. We are carrying on that legacy in every way that we can, and it's important to me that we stay connected to our roots. As the first president who has been born and raised in Cedar City and to have graduated from SUU, it's important to me to honor our community.
Yeah. I love that. And actually, that's something I really want to dive into is who is this Mindy Benson, but we'll save that for a minute or two. But Southern Utah University, it's a Division I university, right?
It is Division I athletics. It is a teaching institution. We were founded on agriculture and teaching, and we have stayed close to those roots, but added so many programs. And as you know, higher education is being questioned right now. I think what SUU has offers to students in any range or any different degree that they may want, or a stackable credential or a certificate, they can enter and exit at any time that they want and still have some formal education.
Yeah. Well, and there's a variety. So we were just right before we were talking about all the things that SUU kind of overseas, right? I mean, not only the higher education portion, but the Utah Shakespeare Festival, the Utah Summer Games,
right?
SUMA
is SUU as well. Yes.
We did a podcast with them as well.
Head Start is SUU. We are a regional institution, which means it is our mission to have an economic impact on our region and to provide cultural engagement with our community. And we do that through the Utah Shakespeare Festival, both economic driver and cultural engagement, as well as the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games, SUMA. So many things that attach to our community and that people can be engaged in at SUU. That's important. That's who we are. And as a regional institution, that is our mission. And I will always make sure that we are community focused and that we are providing the very best that we can, not only for our students and our faculty and staff, but our community.
Yeah. So that's actually a good segue. And one of the things that I really wanted to get into is community focus has been a big initiative for you. So prior to becoming president, what was your role? And I know some of the community outreach played a big role.
I was vice president for community and alumni relations. So it's my job on steroids now to be the president. But that was a new role. And Scott Wyatt, the president at the time, brought me into that role because of my connections to the community.
Right.
And I built that role as community outreach. And we do so much through that community outreach. For example, we do adult learning classes. We do economic development opportunities. We do business development. And all of that was through that division. It started as part of that division and has just grown from there.
So tell me about one of your favorite programs that you got to help start from the ground up and where it is today?
There's so many that we've started, and one of them would be Melinda Thorpe and her team are doing, and you were at the discussion when we had that. But we have launched a program for adult learners and Future Ready Utah, and it is a program that we have a grant with Snow College and Utah Tech, and we serve adult learners. So the people in our community who need to upskill. It was started during COVID when people thought, this is not working with my job, or I need to do something else.
Right.
Opportunity to upskill and engage in education at SUU. And many of those people have attended SUU and matriculated into degrees.
Right.
We've served over 4,000 adult learners. And that shows that learning, it lives forever. That's our motto, right?
So what do you mean by upscale? Help our audience understand you're saying it's for adult learners looking to upscale. What does that mean in layman's terms?
It depends. There's multiple entry levels. And if you are working at a manufacturing plant, for example, but your boss says, hey, you could get a promotion if you would take a communications course. Or if you could learn how to do spreadsheets for me. They don't want a full degree, but they could come in at an entry point and say, I just need these following things. And we have actually partnered with industry. That's the best part about this program. The opportunity that SUU has taken to partner with our local industry and say, what do you need? It may not be a 4-year degree. We go out and tour industry once a month with Southwest Tech and SUU.
Right.
We take our deans out there, we go tour, we walk around and say, what do your workers need? How can we help you? What is your workforce? How can we benefit? And then we can put together a curriculum for their adult learners. And that's what this division does. It's incredible to see how those industries have been enhanced by that, and that we can continue to help them grow in what they are doing. And then we, in turn, get their students either at SUU or Southwest Tech. And sometimes they'll say, we need a particular tech skill. And Southwest Tech will jump in and say, we can provide that. Or they'll say, we need an writing class, or they need to be able to communicate. Great. Then we can provide those things.
Yeah.
It's a way that we can give back to our community, and that we can engage our students into industry and engage the adult workforce as well.
So if I'm someone, I'm working a job like the example you said, and my boss says, hey, Dave, you need more communication skills. Where do I start? Do I call up Mindy Benson? How do I find out more?
A lot of people actually do call up Mindy Benson, and I love that. Having grown up here, I think people know me and they know I'm accessible, and everybody has my number. So I'm happy to get those calls and we can field them. But we actually have a division for that, and that's community and workforce engagement, and they can help take care of that anytime.
You can just look at that on SUU. Is there like an application process, or what if they don't know, like, does Future Ready provide program and communications? I guess walk me through.
There's a tremendous amount of information on their website that you can go to and look up. In addition, they have already worked with a lot of the industry and employers in Southern Utah. So you could check with your employers and see what programs are available, or go to their website and see what programs are available.
What I really love about the Future Ready program, and that's just tip of the iceberg on some of these programs. It's a small
piece of all that they do.
Is, when I was applying for the job to be the economic development director here.
And we're glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. I love being here. I always joke that I feel like I'm Goldilocks. It's just right. But one of the things they had me do in interviewing and others as well was just give a presentation of our understanding of the area. And not being a local, I wanted to make sure I really had as sincere as I could understanding. And so I broke down kind of the economic development segments. And one of the things that I listed was higher education. And I said this then, and I continue to say it today. Most people look at higher education and go, well, that's not economic development. They don't even pay property tax or whatever. But higher education is so key in so many ways. And one of the main ones is workforce development.
It is.
And if we're working together, if your office is working with my office, we're working together with these businesses, to ensure retention.
Right.
Which then helps us ensure recruitment, because our existing businesses can say, here's the support we have here with these specialized trainings, and the manufacturers, the businesses tell that story to the other businesses that I'm out there recruiting.
It's the word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And then when I bring businesses to tour the area, I bring you, I bring Brendan Wood, I bring these.
I really enjoy that opportunity to get with those businesses.
Yeah, because then they can hear it direct from Mindy Benson, right? Of how SUU can support them and make sure they're successful and that they get the workforce they need, they get the training that they need.
And I think it's rare that a university will stand in front of, I mean, maybe it happens all the time, but with a business and say, we'll stand up any course that you need. We'll put the curriculum together to help your workforce. And that's often one of the questions with your population. Can we get the workforce that we need?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have students who are looking for jobs, and we have an adult workforce that can be skilled.
Well, and that I think is so crucial. I hear that all the time. I don't know if you have enough jobs. And I give them an example. I say, well, I think it was American Pacific, because there's a few of these manufacturers that came and they post that they need 30 jobs and they get 300 applications.
Right.
And then I'll hear businesses sometimes say, well, but we don't just want people fresh out of school. We need people that, have some experience. And with what we're doing with Future Ready and some of these other programs, we've got that whole spectrum.
We do. We have the pipeline from our students who just graduated to the adult learner.
Right.
And actually with Head Start, we start teaching those students as young as 2 years old.
Oh, yeah.
So really, from a baby to an adult, we educate everywhere in between. And that's an opportunity for us to touch our community and the economic development.
Yeah. So building off of that, one of the things that I love, and you already kind of brought this up, is the partnership between our tech school and SUU. Because a lot of times people think in terms of you're either a laborer or you're an academic kind of a thing. You're white collar, blue collar, right?
Right.
And the partnership that SUU has with Southwest Tech says, we do it all, right?
We do.
And so talk about like the dual enrollment program and what that does and how that better serves the workforce here.
The dual enrollment program was started 4 or 5 years ago. It's been incredibly successful, and it allows students the entry point, as we've talked about, anywhere that they need for their education. So the partnership started, and it's Southwest Tech students can attend SUU or take a class at SUU. For example, if they have a plumber or a welder or an electrician attending Southwest Tech to be skilled in any of those, they may want a business class or an accounting class so that they can run their own business. So they can attend SUU for the same tuition that they are paying at Southwest Tech. They don't have to enroll at SUU for a full-time program. And vice versa. Our theater students can take a welding class so they know how to put set designs together.
Right.
So it's our students and their students can come in and out at education and get the actual education that they choose to design for them at no additional cost to them.
Right.
We've had over 1,000 students matriculate from Southwest Tech or to participate in that program and matriculate to SUU. And it saved students over $2 million in tuition to do that. The Southwest Tech, I went to their graduation 2 weeks ago, and their student of the year is a mother, non-traditional student. She has 9 children, has lived in Ethiopia, just graduated from Southwest Tech, I think with a medical transcriptionist. And she is attending SUU in our nursing program. She'll apply to our nursing program.
That's wonderful.
Students may decide, you know what, a tech school is right for me. And then they get there and say, I can do this. And I want to go on for more education.
Yeah.
And that's what that partnership does.
Yeah. And you hit right on the head of some of the things that I was thinking is, there may be someone at the tech school that's like, I hated school growing up. It's not for me. Maybe I'll go to tech school, get a little, I shouldn't say little, get a certificate, something that's not so academic, that's more hands-on, right? That's a lot of what tech school,
practical work experience.
Yeah. But then those credits or that education at Southwest Tech then can translate
right.
toward a degree at
and those
SUU.
credits transfer to SUU.
Yeah.
And they already start SUU with credits in their pockets from Southwest Tech. We'll take those courses. We have an articulation agreement that they can come straight into SUU with those courses behind them, and it can save them several semesters and lots of money.
I just absolutely love that, because what it is, I feel like it's traditionally always been like, you either go to college or you don't go to college. And if you don't go to college, you're not doing anything with your life, kind of a thing. And that's just not true.
It's just not true.
There are so many trades. I had a city manager, I think I've said this on the podcast, that always say a good plumber can make as much money as a good city manager, right?
We all need a plumber or an electrician. Right. I mean, they're in desperate need right now, and we want them to go there. And then if they choose to run their own business and need a few classes, that will help. Or they can finish a degree, whatever works for them. But we need all levels in the workforce. Yeah. And this partnership allows that. So it isn't just one or all or nothing. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. That's fun to hear that the woman that you're talking about from Southwest Tech is looking to maybe go into nursing school. She is. She's enrolled at SUU, and I said, "Oh my goodness, we need to help you be successful at SUU." That is great. So, well, maybe I wonder, because my wife, we've talked about when I took this job. Now she's an assistant professor there in the nursing school, which is fantastic. Yeah, and I just love to hear the story. She just loves her students. And she's always been that way. Matter of fact, years ago, and this is a digression, but she's been a nurse. She's worked in ICUs, et cetera. And I remember this was, 10 years ago or so, there was like a lab instructor position at BYU. And I told her, I'm like, you should really apply for that. She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, we're both the oldest in our family. I'm like, you have mentored every single one of our siblings in college, or helped them with their grants. She even helped her mother go back to school to become a teacher. Oh, I love that. And I'm like, just go do it. And she did it. And oh my gosh, she found her love, because she's just so intelligent. And she found her passion. She found her passion, went back. She can teach and mentor. Yeah. And she went and got her master's in nursing education. Sorry, this is a random tangent. I know her students love her, so that's great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. That's what validated it for her. And a lot of students have said since BYU, and she's taught at USU, now she's at SU, we like her here. Good. It's her last place she needs to be. We have said that. We're like, we're not moving anymore for the rest of our lives. We like you all here. But yeah, that's the thing that validated was a lot of students said, we never feel like we're being talked down to. If you don't know an answer, you always come back and say, okay, I've looked into that for you. And that's what's great. To me, that's what learning's about. It is. It's this partnership of the learner and the teacher to help someone succeed. I can think of a couple people that just randomly reach out to me, and they're like, hey, Dave, I'm applying for a job. What do you think about this? And I never look at it as Dave's this all knowing. I look at it as an opportunity to mentor and help and give back. Help someone reach their potential. And that holds a lot of deep meaning for me, because I felt like I never had that growing up, or even in college or in my career. I've always felt like I've had to scrap it myself, and I was always fighting to show my worth. And I don't think anybody should have to fight to show their worth. I think we should be able to see people's worth and help them, direct them in a way to get the most out of their value. And sorry, that's a random David tangent. No, it's great. And I think you've also uniquely described SUU. I think that is the experience that students have here. What your wife does as a mentor and a teacher and a faculty member is typical of most of our faculty members. Yeah, I love that. It's a unique experience for SUU, and they are embraced with the faculty, and the faculty take them and mentor them and network them into their new opportunities. And it's so awesome to watch students find their passion through that mentorship. I still teach my event management class. It's my favorite thing that I get to do on campus, because I get to interact with our students. Yeah. But I still have students from 15 years ago who reach out to me and say, what would you do at this event? Or, hey, Mindy, I'm at the Super Bowl running events for the Super Bowl, and I just wanted you to know that I couldn't have done that without your class. That's so cool. And now those students are bringing our current students and saying, hey, we need help on this event. Do your students want to come out for that opportunity? Yeah. It's uniquely SUU because we are small enough to be able to spend the time like you described with those students and help them find their passion.
Yeah. And when you say that, so when I went to USU and then I finished my undergrad at BYU and then I got my master's at the U. And my favorite professors were almost always the adjuncts. Yeah. Because especially at those bigger schools, because of exactly what we're talking about here, I felt like I was talking to a peer and someone that kind of mentor me. And maybe I should backtrack. I can think of a couple people who took some time, or maybe they meant more to me than maybe I meant to them. But to me, it was important. I had a professor. She was the PR person for Harley Davidson, and she came and taught at BYU. And I've always kept a little bit of contact with her because of kind of like what you described. And there's value in those relationships, and it carries over. And so that goes into one thing I wanted to say about just SUU and about the Cedar City community is I talk a lot about collaboration, and we're growing for sure. But I think we're trying really hard here to keep what makes us unique and what makes us tick. And that is the approachability, the collaboration, and I think I talked about this when Michael Barr was on with Utah Shakespeare Festival about how, you would think you would see someone like Michael Barr over the Utah Shakespeare Festival and you'd be like, I don't even know if someone like that would talk to me. Right. And then you run into him and it's like he's your best friend. And I feel that way.
That's who SUU is. That's who Cedar City is.
Exactly. Like, it's not a threatening thing to talk to the president of SUU. No. You were kind of talking about being president versus being Mindy, right? Before the show. And people get to see being Mindy. Although I was telling Dallas before you got here, I'm like, Mindy has this level of stoicism that I just always wish I had, but I'm just too quirky for that. But,
I can thank my mother for that. She was absolutely stoic. But here's a fun fact about me. I am the biggest introvert you will ever meet. Yeah. And people think that my stoic face is very grumpy and they're often intimidated by that. And honestly, it is. I am such an introvert. Yeah.
And well, this is why they take so many pictures of you and we have you on podcasts so they could see your non-introverted smile.
Once I get to know people, there's a lot of smiling and there's a lot of fun inside jokes, but I am pretty quiet and people are always surprised to find that out.
Well, that's great. Okay. So since we're on the note of Mindy Benson, I have got to ask you, first of all, I knew the community collaboration. I knew President Mindy Benson, but I didn't know about the event planning and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But then what's even more interesting is your bachelor's is in zoology.
I know.
So you've got to tell me about zoology and what got you into that and what your original career vision was. And then we could talk about what led you to what you're doing now.
So interesting. And I honestly think that every step of my life has led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And that's where I am. But let me back up and say I started at the Utah Shakespeare. I grew up on our campus. My dad worked on campus and I always was in his office as a little girl and went to all the activities.
What did he do?
He was the director of student activities.
Oh,
so
really?
I went to all of his activities and all of his dances and concerts and everything that they put on.
So that's always been at the heart for you.
That's always been at the heart of who I am. And then I worked at the Utah Shakespeare Festival. I started at 12 years old as a tart girl. Wow. And I worked as a tart girl at the festival. And then I worked in company management as a student at SUU. During that time, Fred Adams and Scott Phillips mentored me significantly and made me the people person that I like to be. Yeah. It helped bring that out. So I went to college. I had always wanted to be a doctor and always wanted to go pre-med, and that was my plan, and that was what I was going to do. Wow. So I majored in zoology. I got to the chemistry classes.
Well, why zoology?
Well, I was majoring in biology.
Oh, okay.
And then I got to the chemistry classes at the same time I was involved in student government on campus. And I was helping with the concerts and all the activities. And I thought, that is far more fun than chemistry classes are.
That is true. Yeah.
So when I was too close to finishing, I picked up the communications minor. I zoology required one less chemistry class. So I switched my major to zoology and graduated in that, but picked up the communications. And that is the rest of my life has been more along the communications and the public relations and the relationship front.
That's and that second half actually is very similar to me. But describe what a degree in zoology actually is for people that don't know.
I can name any bug, any muscle, or any bone 25 years later. And it's a science background. Mm-hmm. It's the study of living things. And I learned all of those on my way to med school. And then I took a detour, which is exactly where I'm supposed to be. But there are times when I still think I wish I was a doctor.
Yeah. Well, and I have some reflections. There's like a geology class that I took in college and I ended up being fascinated with. And there's times where I'm dealing with like political stress. And I'm like, a geologist out in the middle of some field looking at rocks sounds a lot less stressful.
Sometimes that's what I think. But I know those jobs are stressful too. So I guess I'll take what I have.
To each their own.
Yeah, exactly.
So my life plans was always to actually go into politics and things like that. And my mother, before she passed, had actually mentioned to me like a few things that she thought I would be good in. And one of them that she mentioned was journalism. And it's the only one I remember because it was the only one that I felt was the most absurd. and I'm like, journalism, I don't want to report on people. I want to be the change maker, kind of the thing was my youthful attitude, I guess.
Didn't we all have that?
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's see what's in journalism. And I found out about public relations. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. And the more classes I took, the more I enjoyed it. And then when I graduated and I got a degree in communications, public relations, I found I didn't realize the event side of it. But the first firm I worked for
all works together.
Yeah, I was always this like pseudo event manager, right? Planner. And events are a ton of fun. They have their own stresses as well.
So much work, but they're amazing. Yeah.
So when I saw that you taught event planning and things like that, I thought, oh, that is cool.
Very similar.
Yeah. So,
similar backgrounds.
And then of course I went and got my master's in public administration, and I'm still thinking maybe I'll go like a political route. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be the person that works for the politicians. I want to be the decision maker. And then after a while, I'm like, no, I really don't, because people love you or they hate you. Yeah. And I like to be in the background. I think that's like the job
of a university president, for sure. But I've done multiple political events on the national level, like the Republican National Convention. And I'm really good sitting in the background, running the events for them and putting the president of the United States on stage. That's a good job for me.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes I miss that job. Yeah. I know that job.
Yeah. Well, and to the part of not being the head muckety muck, we'll put it, is I feel like I get to be more on the ground with what's being done and help assist those that are leading.
That was my favorite part.
You know what I mean?
Was my favorite part to manage whoever the client was. And sometimes it was the president of the United States or the president of the university or whoever it was, but making sure that they have everything that they need. And that was my favorite thing. And I miss that often, and I miss events. I know that this job is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I love it with all my heart, and I miss the event side of things too. Yeah. I'm grateful that the governor put me on the organizing committee for the Olympics. There you go. Because that's the best of all worlds for me.
Yeah. Okay, so you can't just throw out the president of the United States, putting him on stage. So you got to tell me a couple stories. What are some interesting stories? And it doesn't have to be necessarily president of the United States, but I think you should tell one of those. But what are some fun events and cool characters that you've worked with, or maybe some crazy last minute things you had to fix an event right beforehand, going on stage or whatever? I'm just blabbing.
No, I love that. And people, as I was interviewing for the president, would always say, what does event management have to do with being a president? And I said, it's high stakes, high stress.
Yes.
Everything has to happen on the fly. Yep. It's the very same thing. So it's pretty similar, but so many good stories, and some of them I can tell, and a lot of them will have to go to my grave. But I would often sit there and think, I cannot believe that a girl from Cedar City, Utah is in the middle of whatever this was. Yeah. And I say the Republican National Convention. I helped produce events for several of those. The inauguration of the President Bush, I was at and helped work on some of those events.
W or HW?
W. W.
Yeah,
I was like, which one is that?
Yeah. You remember all the political stuff back in the day.
Back in the day. So, let's see, a good story. I have had, so at the 2002 Winter Olympics, I was assigned as a host and a driver for the opening and closing ceremonies.
Oh, really?
And KISS, KISS was
Gene
one of the
Simmons?
people that I got to host.
Nice.
And everyone had been, Gene was notorious for scaring people and being very entitled, let's just gently say.
Okay.
And he'd gone through several people on the team and they assigned me. And I was like, okay, well, I've worked with this type a lot. And it's a challenge to me to bring them to the other side and to get to be friends with them. So Gene didn't know what he had met in his match with Mindy.
Yeah.
And we got together and he started down the litany of, I'm gonna scare you. And I said, no, here's how it's going to be. And we had a come to Mindy meeting and said, here's how it's going to be. And then you remember the berets of 2002 were the hot item. And my mom wanted a beret and I could not get a beret anywhere.
I think I've got one stored somewhere.
Well, Gene Simmons said, what can I do for you to help? And I said, my mom wants a beret. And we went into Park City and it's Gene Simmons. He gets whatever he wants, right? Yeah. And what came out with a whole box of berets for me to bring home. So I won Gene Simmons over. Just so many opportunities like that to be in the middle of situations that were so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah. When they were in the van driving around, I was like, wow, you guys, wow. But then when they put on their makeup and their heels, I was like, rock on. It was pretty fun. Pretty cool opportunities.
That's fun to hear. Gene Simmons. All right. That's cool. You had briefly mentioned one of your students worked on the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Which Super Bowl? Do you remember which one it was?
Well, he's worked the past, probably 6 or 7 Super Bowls.
Really?
Yeah. So he has found a niche in the NFL and he has worked the Super Bowl experience and the halftime shows.
Oh, really?
In the NFL.
Wow.
And he has worked those for the past several years. And last year when the Super Bowl was in Las Vegas, he said, let's get your students from your class down there. So I had about 10 students from my class go down and work the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. And what an incredible opportunity for those students.
Yeah.
And I got to go down to visit and I was like proud mama moment. But he and another alumna that graduated from my class just ran the NFL draft in Green Bay and ran events for that there. So pretty fun to see what SUU students are going.
That is so
From
cool.
SUU to everywhere.
Yeah. Well, what's great about that is those relationships with alumni is maybe later when you need a hand with something that they want to give back because of what SUU or what you as an individual did for them as a mentor to help progress what we're trying to do here forward, right?
That's what it's about, is paying it forward. But it warms my heart when they come back and say, I want to help students the same way that I was helped. So, taking students to work the Super Bowl is an incredible opportunity. And we have alumni doing that all the time for our students.
That's awesome. Okay. So you said you've been involved with the Shakespeare Festival since you were 12 years old.
That is true.
Do you have... Are there a couple of plays or actors throughout the years or moments that stand out to you?
Oh my gosh. You're going to make 12-year-old Mindy come out here and blush.
Please.
I had a crush on 90% of the actors that were at the festival at that time. And I used to take them tarts and leave them on their dressing table while they were on stage. So who didn't I have a crush on at that point? But my favorite play remains Richard III from 1987. And Patrick Page was the Richard III in that. He has gone on to an enormous Broadway career.
Oh, wow.
He was the Green Goblin in Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark. He was the Grinch in How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He was Scar in Lion King. He was Hades in Hadestown. He's gone on to a remarkable career and we still stay in touch. So
Really?
He was part of my inauguration with an inauguration video, and it's pretty cool to think 12-year-old Mindy to what I'm doing now. But it's all about the networking and building and keeping those relationships so I can reach out to him. Yeah. He is still wanting to be engaged in the Shakespeare Festival. That was something that was formidable for him. Mm-hmm. And he wants to give back to the festival, as do the actors who have been here. And I think of all the actors who have walked through those doors, be it Josh Whitford from The West Wing or Ty Burrell. Mm-hmm. So many incredible people have walked through the festival doors. We have a gem here.
Well, I'll say this tangent in a second, but what I did want to say is what you described. A lot of times in networking and relationships, it sounds very coggish, like it's my job. I'm going to build this relationship. We're going to get the funding we need. But really
how you keep those relationships together. Right.
Well, but what you described is actually a step beyond just the academic understanding. What you just described was a friendship, right?
Yes.
You're building real, sincere relationships and friendships that help keep things moving forward, help garner the support that you need, right? And so it's so cool to hear about an actor like that you talk about, having a crush on when you're 12 and having this friendship that's lasting. And it sounds like, and I'm putting words in Mindy's mouth, but kind of probably a bit of a mentorship, someone that you looked up to when you were young.
Absolutely.
Here comes were you going to say something to that?
It's important to me, and I think to people's success, to keep those relationships going. And I teach my students about that every year. It's not about what can they do for you. It's about what can you do for them, and keeping the friendship so that it isn't just transactional when you need it.
Exactly. Transactional. Mm-hmm. That sometimes I see a lot of people professionally who look at relationships as very transactional. I just got to build this relationship with this person to do this and X, Y, and Z.
So I can get this and that. It's not what it's
about.
And
they're missing the point.
We're human beings, not human doings.
Yeah.
And we need to connect at that human level. That's very important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There was some thought that I had along those lines, but
sorry, I distracted you.
Oh no, that was good. Just not being transactional. There was something, I can't even remember who said it years ago. It's probably when I first started in public relations. But someone once said, never burn a bridge you may have to cross again.
Right.
And, I found that to be so true in my career. There's been people that I've definitely butted heads with in my career. And to be able to go back and put my arms around that someone to put their arms around me and be like, how you doing? Hope things are going well. Glad to see you're succeeding. Even though maybe we butted heads, that means the world to me.
It's important to do that. You never know when your paths are going to cross, and they always do, like you say.
It keeps my tongue tempered sometimes.
It may feel good to throw gas on the fire at the time, but it's never going to serve you well. It's how can you best keep this relationship and take care of things in the best way.
Yeah. And I've learned both sides of that. There have been times where I've butted heads and I saw that bridge burning and I've had to go back and fix that. And there's other times where I saw the potential and I refrained from it. Right. And then full circle come around. Some of those relationships were key relationships that became key friendships.
And
that helped us move forward.
People know if you've treated them well or not. And those key friendships can be make the difference in what you do in life or in your career or when something comes up. Those friendships you have to rely heavily on. And sometimes it's that relationship credibility that you have in the bank.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe I've said this in a prior podcast, but the Ty Burrell thing still cracks me up. I sent a picture of Ty Burrell's photo hanging up at the Utah Shakespeare Festival to my family, and nobody knew who he was.
Oh my goodness! Well,
nobody
he looked a little different.
He had a much more rounder jaw, a little more. Yep. He had a little more masculine look about him in the, I guess, what was that? Late 80s, early 90s, something like that.
Yeah, I think it was early to mid 90s. And
is that what it was?
He was Puck, and it was a very different character than what he played.
But it's so cool to see him there.
Yeah. So many got their start.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe what I should dive into now is there's a lot going on right now at SUU, like
so much good momentum,
programs, buildings, etc. I've met is he the dean? The new guy over like the arts. That's really bad description.
Dean Michael Schmidt.
He's
over the College of Performing Visual Arts.
He's such a wonderful person.
We attract incredible people to SUU.
And actually, this is a great way to go this or to segment from build off of what we were just saying. So one thing that SUU does is new faculty have the opportunity to go on an outdoor rafting trip. And my wife was unsure, but she's super outdoorsy. We both are. And I'm like, you've got to go on that rafting trip. She's just like, I don't know if I have enough time from that. She went. She
loved it, didn't she?
She loved it. But this morning, she just went running with one of the friends that she met on that rafting trip. Michael, for example, he had to move out here first, kind of like what was the situation with us. I moved out here, kind of like, figuring out how to move all of our other stuff. When my family finally moved out here, we had extra couches and things. And when Michael moved out here, he didn't have a couch. And we're like, hey, do you want this couch set until until your spouse can get out here and everything? And anyways, again, it was those relationships
that are key.
And anyways, but
you can build those. And something that's good, SUU, our strategic plan, the core values of our strategic plan are people-centric, purpose-driven, and place-centric.
Yeah.
It's about people, purpose, and place.
Yeah.
And what better way to do that than out on a river trip to learn about the place that you're in, the purpose that you have in educating students and changing lives and being part of our community and taking care of each other.
Yeah. What's funny though is where we moved from, we still, a year and a half later, we're still trying to sell our house that's on a mountain. But my wife told me, she's like, we're going rafting like 30 minutes from our other house.
That's awesome.
It cracked me up because we lived over in southeastern Utah where they do the rafting trip. But that was a lot of digression. But what I wanted to get to is you have a few new buildings going up. Tell me about them. Tell me what the hope is and the vision, and maybe talk about programs and things related to those staff.
So we were able to get two different buildings. One is an expansion and one is a brand new building. The expansion will be to our Dixie L. Levitt College of Business. The expansion is the Joe and Beverly Burgess Family Business Center. And that is an expansion onto our business building. We built it and our MBA program grew 862%.
Wow.
We needed more space. We needed more space for faculty. We needed more opportunities for students to be able to collaborate. So that is an expansion, and that will house some really interesting, innovative opportunities for students and the opportunities to get together and collaborate and innovate on businesses and entrepreneur and leadership. And the Burgesses were kind enough to help us with that.
Yeah.
So that will be done in the spring. And then we have a brand new music building going up on the corner of 300 West and University Boulevard. I want that to be a corridor of the arts. We have the auditorium across the street. We have the Beverly Taylor Sorensen Center for the Arts, the Utah Shakespeare Festival, SUMA, right across the street, kitty corner. That will be the corridor of the arts for us.
Yeah,
It's a gorgeous building. The legislature gave us the funding for that. It too will be done in the spring. Something really fun about that is those who remember the Cedar 2nd 8th Ward Chapel. It was one of the original chapels to Cedar City.
Okay.
There was a stained glass window in it.
Oh, okay.
And when the building was torn down, the stained glass window was meticulously saved. And that stained glass window will be going up in this music building.
Really?
Yeah. So the history lives on. It's really cool. And it's a gorgeous building, a glass front. People will be very proud of the building.
How many stories? Go ahead.
It's 2 stories, and it's the first building that has my signature on it as a brand new building on campus.
That's awesome. Fun? Yeah, something to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's cool.
When it came back as a big old square building, I'm like, no, that's not.
Can we have a little more?
I want it to be pretty. So
can we have a little more architectural?
It will be pretty and functional. It will have a 500-seat auditorium rehearsal performance hall. So they can come and see orchestra concerts and choir concerts.
Love it.
It'll be a gorgeous, gorgeous building with an opportunity for us. And that is actually going to be named after the Eccles.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep, they were kind enough to donate to that effort, and that will be named after the Eccles.
That's awesome. Well, and what I love is So we have our historic downtown Main Street, and then you turn the corner on Center Street, and it starts carrying over. And the university helps.
It's right into campus.
Yeah, it helps carry that. And this building just furthers that.
It does.
And I just love the walkability, the synergy. I love the huge trees on SUU's campus.
Don't we have gorgeous trees?
Yes, it's
Those
so
trees
beautiful.
were planted obviously decades and decades ago by Wally Flanagan. And he was the groundskeeper at the time, and he's planted a lot of those trees. And it makes me sad as we grow and the trees come down, or more importantly, when the Cedar City wind comes in and picks up one of those trees, because a part of his history is in those trees.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm in one of those I joke about how our historic downtown Main Street, I feel like I'm in a Hallmark movie.
I love me some Hallmark Christmas movies for sure.
But our campus, I feel like I'm on the quintessential movie that you see in the movies of a college campus and what it should be like. Our
campus is gorgeous, especially right now in the spring, summer, when the blossoms start and everything's green and people are here for the Utah Shakespeare Festival and the summer games. Yeah. Gorgeous campus. We were at one point Tree Campus USA. We're known as University of the Parks.
Oh, really?
So that is important to us to make sure that our campus and our grounds, our facilities team does such an incredible job. But we want our campus to be accessible and for community and students to be able to go play Frisbee or Frisbee golf or walk through our campus. Yeah. You'll see that more often than you don't.
Yeah. Well, and in the a year or two ago, Cedar City was named the third fastest growing college town in the nation, right?
Absolutely. Our enrollment at SUU has doubled in the last 10 years. Yeah. We at 8,000 10 years ago, and we're at 16,239 10 years later. An incredible amount of growth that so many people have worked hard on. Yeah. And I know sometimes our community says, darn university and parking. We're working on all of those. We want to be a good neighbor, and that's important to us to make sure that we grow at the same pace as the community. Yeah. So we're doing that.
I actually, that's one thing I brag on all the time is we have a D1 university, 16,000 plus students. I mean, there's people that don't know that. There's local grocers who we try to get to come here. I mean, I'm always recruiting retail, manufacturing, et cetera. There's a Utah grocer that still thought our market was like 10,000 people. And I'm like, our university is 50% larger than that.
We have changed that significantly. Yeah. And in fact, we just had an economic development study conducted for Southern Utah University. The numbers haven't even been released yet. We're getting ready to do that. But the Kim Gardner Institute conducted an economic impact study that Southern Utah University has on our community. $513 million economic impact on our community and supporting 5,000 jobs. That means, grocery store clerks and gas station attendants and restaurant waiters and those who serve our students and serve our faculty and staff. We have a tremendous impact on our community.
Yeah. In fact,
and I hope it's for the good.
Oh, I do too. And I think this is where I always tell people, planning for cities. This is a digression, but city planning is so essential because a lot of people who don't want growth are scared of planning because then they're like, you're restricting property rights and telling us what we're supposed to do. And then you're bringing stuff in. And what I tell people, I was like, no, that's not the purpose of planning. Planning is as growth comes, sometimes you can not help the natural growth that's coming. So as growth is coming, you who love this community for generations, how do you want your community to grow?
How do you want it to grow? What do you want it to look like?
And not everybody
have the infrastructure that we need for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not everybody's going to have the perfect answer on everything or agree on everything. But in general, we know some of the things we've described just in this conversation of what we love about Cedar City and Iron County from someone who's been here, grew up here to a newbie. Our job is not to change that. It's to preserve the integrity of it and guide that growth.
Preserve the best and guide the growth.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what good planning is about. There's a reason why people are moving here. It's not to change. It's because they see what they like here, and we want to help bring them in preserving that and growing that and understanding that.
We have to preserve the relationships like we have talked about and the hometown feel and the small town feel. we can still have that and have some growth. And we found that on our campus.
Yeah.
We've doubled in size, but it still feels like SUU, and that relationship and mentorship that I told you we have on campus, and our student experience is different because of the way we plan.
Right. Well, and I don't want anyone to misinterpret what I've said or what you and I are talking about here as we're trying to increase our population, become this metro. In fact, what we're saying is almost the opposite. We're saying if there's growth coming, what do we locally, how are we going to prepare for it to make sure our community still brings out the best of what we love about our community, right? So there's a couple things with that I wanted to say. Now I've digressed myself too much. There's one thing I want to hit on, but I want to hit on it at the end. And I'm having a total space case moment. So maybe I just dive into that. Yeah. The One Utah Summit. Let's bring it back to your events background as well. We have the One Utah Summit. Why don't you describe for our audience what the One Utah Summit is and why do we have it here at SUU?
It was actually started at SUU over 35 years ago. And
it was just like an economic kind of summit, right?
A summit to see how we could help rural Utah maintain jobs and maintain so our graduates didn't have to go out somewhere else so they could stay here. And so communities in rural Utah could continue to thrive. It was started 35 plus years ago, and SUU has continued to maintain that. It's morphed into the One Utah Summit, which is a partnership with the governor's office. And there is one in Salt Lake in the spring and one at SUU in the fall. It's the same summit that we've been producing. But oh my goodness, Stephen Lisenby has moved the summit on steroids.
Yeah,
and it's grown to over 1,000 attendees. We're bursting at the seams and we love that. And it is political leaders, leadership, community leadership, county commissioners, city leaders, and business and industry leaders.
Lots of business and industry.
All get together and say, how can we help impact our state? And where are we going? And how do we plan for these things?
Right.
What's the trend? What's coming? How do we plan for those things? And it happens every year on our campus. And it's what an opportunity to have the greatest minds in the state converge on our campus to talk about how we can best help and impact Utah, and especially rural Utah, through economic development and through economic growth.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the key things about SUU in general, and the One Utah Summit kind of highlights that is, and this goes into what we were just saying a minute ago about growth, is focused on how do we help rural communities be successful?
Right.
How do we help business and see the value of these different areas and these different communities? And I'm saying that in very generic terms because there's a lot more than that. Again, that's kind of the tip of the iceberg a little bit. But one thing that I've heard, because I've been to both the one in Salt Lake and here, I constantly hear people say, I love the Southern one. I much prefer the Southern one. And what they highlight is they actually have real meaningful discussions, friendships, get things like that. And no knock, well, kind of a little knock, I guess, on the Salt Lake one, which I'll say something about that in a minute.
But it's less of a knock on them and more of a
compliment on ours.
A compliment on what ours is. And I think it's just, it's the feel, it's Southern Utah, it's rural Utah coming together, and everybody gets to just take a breath and come into our beautiful city and slow down for a minute
and have genuine conversations.
Have those conversations, authentic human interaction.
Yeah. And I think that's what people have said is, I don't feel like I'm just going to a typical conference where it's this very superficial kind of like networking, very like we were talking about before,
right?
Where it's like this, I'm doing my job to build this relationship. We're really diving into relationships, really diving into issues or opportunities.
And helping to solve them, not just talking about them and then going away and forgetting them,
right?
But helping to solve them. And one of the exciting things this year, the One Utah Summit is the first 3 days in a week in October, and then we have Flatiron County at the end of that.
Glad you highlighted
that. That highlights our SUU aviation program, which is one of the top programs in the nation for developing pilots. And our helicopter program is the top in the nation for developing pilots.
Yep. 1 in every 10 helicopter pilots.
Yep. Come from SUU.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible program that's experienced rapid growth. We are so proud of that program. And that is an opportunity where government leaders and business leaders come to see what's about Iron County, what's going on, see all the good things. Home builders and Water Conservancy and SUU partner on that to say, let's talk about water. Yeah. Let's talk about home building. Let's talk about affordable housing, and let's talk about education. Yeah. And we bring that up, and so it's bookends, the summit, and then both of those will really help impact our communities in rural Utah for the good.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I remember the thing that I forgot from earlier, because when you mentioned housing, a lot of people are like, oh, there's so much housing, and in particular, there's apartments and townhomes. What people don't realize is we actually have a shortage of student housing, right? And SUU has been working on trying to make sure we have enough accommodations for our students here.
We did, and it takes a minute to reach equilibrium, right? So we had that growth, that incredible growth coming, and we didn't have enough housing. And often at the beginning of the school year, we'd have to reach out to our community and say, any of you that are willing to open your homes. Yeah. And without fail, every time our community comes to our aid.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
We're so appreciative of that.
And now we finally kind of hit
then
where we
started
need to
working with developers and saying, please get building. We think it's better for developers to build than if we build the housing, because that helps with our tax base and it helps jobs in Iron County.
Right.
So the developers built, but it takes a minute to build. Mm-hmm. And as they were building and we were having shortages, we had to back down on how aggressively we were recruiting to wait for those apartments. So we slowed down. The housing is now here. Now it'll take some time for us to ramp growth back up and be at equilibrium. So,
I like how you say equilibrium. It's about, and
it takes time to get to equilibrium.
Well, and equilibrium is a key word, because what that means is balance.
Right.
It's not too much of this or not enough of that. It's finding what is the right balance for what we need and what our community is doing and what our community wants, right? And so
we're appreciative that developers come in, and now it's our job to go fill those.
Yeah, again, with the partnerships, right? And the community collaboration. And I've said this a million times, I'll say it again. One of the things that stood out to me when I came here was, in a lot of communities that I've worked and jobs that I've been in, it's always about trying to bring people together out of their silos. If anything, I think Cedar City has the reverse problem, where we have so many collaborative committees. We sometimes are replicating the work, which is a different problem, but a better problem.
It's a good problem to have.
Of saying, well, so-and-so's also been working on that. Why don't we
then we can talk about converge, it, but at least somebody is working on it and somebody's doing that.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. It's a much better problem to have. Yeah. It's a good problem to have when you've got that much collaboration. So I think a good way to kind of round off our conversation is, let's talk about some of the things that you have coming up this summer and this school year, between Shakespeare Festival, summer games, and whatever little things you want to highlight with some of these things we have coming up.
You know, I always say this is my favorite time of year, depending on where we are. I love it when students get back to campus and fall and homecoming and football games. There's nothing that is quintessential college like fall. Yeah. But summers in Cedar City are so incredible. Fun. Yeah. When our tourists come and we have so many people and the energy is high, we're right in the middle of that. Yeah. And I love that. So we are 2 weeks away from the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games opening ceremonies. And that is really the unofficial kickoff to summer. Right. It's where it's the opportunity for 10,000 community members and athletes to come together. The community celebrates the athletes, and we just have a big summer kickoff party. Yeah. Fireworks are always the favorite of that, and that's something that's
a great show.
Yeah, and we're at 39 years of the Utah Summer Games.
Wow.
Yeah, 40th anniversary coming up next year.
And you have some great partnerships that just kicked off too with the Summer Games,
We do. John Oglesby's been working hard on that, and we have brought the Raiders into SUU Nation, and we are working on flag football for women's flag football, and really excited about that opportunity.
Hosting the Special Olympics as well.
We are hosting the Special Olympics, and they actually kick off the week before opening ceremonies.
Awesome.
So next week they will be coming up, and you will have an opportunity where everyone is welcome to come to celebrate the athletes and to participate in those games as well. That's a partnership where the Special Olympics have signed on to be part of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games, and they will be parallel with one another the first couple of weeks in May, at the end of May and the first couple of weeks of June. Incredible opportunities for athletes of all abilities to be able to participate. And Cedar City always comes out to support those. You know, the volunteer spirit of Cedar City is alive and well.
I'm one of the track coaches and also help with cross country. And the head track coach for Cedar High was just sending out a message. Hey, we need some volunteers for the Special Olympics, et cetera. You know, who can help? And it's great to be able to just see a text like that come through and say, okay, let's see what we can do.
We'll jump in.
Yeah. Larry H. Miller Group has been amazing partner, right?
They have been incredible sponsors for the Summer Games, and to have the Larry H. Miller name attached to the Utah Summer Games is very meaningful. He came to the Summer Games, who was part of that. We inducted him into the opening ceremonies Hall of Fame before he passed, and that was an incredible opportunity to honor a legend and such a person who's had an impact on our state. So to carry his name on our games, which Jerry Sherritt, the president of SUU, and Rich Wilson envisioned and built from the ground up. What an incredible games. Yeah,
what I love about the Summer Games, I always joke with my track kids, I'm the Uncle Rico of running, if you're familiar with Napoleon Dynamite, you know, and instead of how much you want to bet I could throw a pigskin over the mountains, it's how much you want to bet I can run over the mountains. But I always joke too that unless you go to college for track or cross country or whatever, you can't challenge someone to a 100-meter dash. It's like 5Ks or marathons. But the Utah Summer Games gives an opportunity of all ages for all the Uncle Ricos of the world to come out, whether it's track or whether it's there's so many different types of events, right? We have softball tournaments, basketball, is there gymnastics too?
Yes, absolutely.
There's just everything.
Everything you can imagine. And John has been great at even expanding sports to what's popular right now. Yeah. And that's been really fun to watch. And that's why we have the women's flag football.
Yeah.
What an opportunity for girls to develop their skills in whatever they're doing. And it's for all skill levels. It doesn't have to be just the serious marathoners. It's everybody in between.
Right.
And such a great opportunity to showcase our campus and our community. And we appreciate that our community welcomes people in like they do. It's a great recruiting opportunity for SUU.
Yeah. Well, and then we, of course, and we've had Shakespeare Festival come on a few times. They start up, tell us the season again for Shakespeare Festival. And
they start in the end of June and go through
October,
the first weekend in October.
Yeah.
And then they have the high school Shakespeare competition, which is another economic development tool and recruiting tool that SUU helps produce. But the Utah Shakespeare Festival, that's
it used
old
to be
school.
Shakespearean.
It did.
But yeah.
That's obviously one of my favorites, and we've talked about. I've grown up on it. My grandma and my aunt, when Fred founded the festival, actually brought lunch to the actors every day as they were rehearsing, and
they brought lunch,
the costumes.
and then you brought tarts.
Yeah, see, so it's all in the family. But what a fun opportunity for people to have a cultural immersive experience when the festival opens, and we have people from all walks of life come into Cedar City and use hotel rooms and grocery stores and restaurants and have an opportunity to have some cultural exposure as well.
Yeah. Well, and we actually have a new hotel, a 5-story hotel going up in the historic downtown area, which is just right there next to that whole campus, like you were talking about, these
they
arts.
They just get to walk right to the arts, and it's such a fun opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this year I'm going to have to get season tickets. So
many good plays coming up.
I know, some great ones. Well, okay. Anything else you want to highlight? What note do you want to leave off with for those listening about SUU?
Just that SUU has some really great momentum right now, and it is because of the people on our campus and the community and the support that they give us. The donors, the alumni, the friends, we're over 70,000 alumni strong. One of our alumni, Miles Killebrew, came back and spoke at commencement this year, and he's a 10-year NFL guy and has been to the Pro Bowl twice.
Wow.
just talked about the experience and the immersion that he had in our community. And I know those stories wouldn't be possible without the love and support that we get from our community. So whether it's supporting a student today or your family helped found us back in 1897, we rely heavily on our community to be who we are and are very appreciative. And we are happy to be an economic driver and will continue to do so.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your partnership and all that you do to help in economic development with tourism. We didn't even touch on tourism, but you know what? We're going to have you come on again. We can go into so many other things.
Always happy. Goodness, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
always.
There is. Well, great. Well, Mindy Benson, president of Southern Utah University, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's been great to chat with you today.
Likewise.